All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Passion in Motion podcast. I'm your host, Mutsa, and today I'm joined by another very, very special guest. We got Dr. Corey Holmes in the house. Hi, Corey. How's it going?
Hey, Musa. I am awesome, man. So happy and glad that you've let me share your space.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to have you in my space. And for people wondering, oh, what kind of doctor is he? He looks like to be a doctor of many things, but he's got a PhD in African studies. With I think a
Yes,
good
I'm a social scientist.
social
Yes,
scientist. Yeah, concentration was in South African studies as well, right? So
absolutely.
that
Yep.
is right up
So,
my
yep.
alley. Yeah, and I know I love that. Before we just started recording, we are talking about his trips to South Africa and all that good stuff there. Being at the World Cup and everything. So he knows what's out there. Actually, no, quick question: did you ever get to experience a braai in South Africa, the authentic South African
Absolutely.
experience? Yeah.
Absolutely. Several. Too
So,
many. Quick story. As you can see the theme, I
yeah.
have a lot of stories, Musa. So a friend of mine, KK Diaz, well-known young, he's not young anymore, entrepreneur, from Soweto.
Mm.
Um, and we went over his uncle's house. And so they were cooking a goat, right? So the goat was strung up in the garage, right?
Ah.
So I'm like, how am I going to get out of this? I'm not eating. I've never had goat. And so, but Go-Go, of course, it's like, oh no, bye-bye, no, you have to have the goat, right? And
Yeah.
obviously, I was not going to be disrespectful. Man, I have never been so sick in my life. I think because it was chewy and I don't know, but I was
Yeah.
sick for like a week.
Yeah.
A week, a
Yeah.
week. But yes, several brides, man. Love it, love it, love
Yeah,
it.
me and goats have a very complicated relationship because I
Mm,
love meat. I love all kinds of meat.
okay.
I eat all of it, but goat meat is
Mhm.
something that it's I wouldn't say it's a delicacy, but it's not usually the kind of meat you can't really go to a supermarket and buy goat meat. I
Right.
think these days maybe, but not it's not a usual thing. And I remember we went to like our homestead like in the rural area, like just met with like some relatives are there and they strung up a goat in the tree and as a kid, I think I was like 9 and I'm watching this whole thing happen, kill the goat, string it up, you know, because people eat the intestines too, right? They clean it out.
Yes, they put
That
the whole
watching
goat in
watching
this
that
big
whole
black
thing.
pot. Yeah,
Yeah, watching that whole
yeah.
thing, I was like, I am not eating that. I am not, I am good. And I didn't eat goat meat for a very long time. It's only like in the last year or two that I've actually started to like partake. But for a long time, I was like, yeah, nah, this just doesn't do it for me.
It's an acquired taste. An
It is an
acquired
acquired taste,
taste.
but it's what's crazy? I've seen cows and chickens be like killed a lot, but I still never had a problem. I don't know what it was about the
Yeah,
goat. Yeah,
yeah.
so it was just yeah.
Maybe
Anyway,
because you can fry it, man.
maybe
You
who
know,
knows?
right? Because I love chicken. Like, and you're
Yeah,
right. Like, there's nothing to see a chicken across the road, and I mean,
it is what it
in the
is. Yeah,
Dominican Republic as well, right? Like, hey,
yeah,
string him
yeah.
up, make sure he's dead, gut him, and let's fry him up, or let's
Yeah.
bake him, or let's broil him, or let's grill him.
No, the chicken
So,
is great. Yeah. But so to kind of get started here, I would like people maybe to get to know a little bit more about you before we start getting
okay.
into your book. So listener, if you're listening to this, Corey here wrote a book that I think just got released very recently, and it is called Golf, Cigars, and Scotch: Balancing Fatherhood, Friendship, and Fine Living. You know, all the important things in life. So we're gonna talk about this book of his and sort of the themes that are in it and yeah. But before we kind of get to that, I think getting to know a little bit more about you as well will be good. So yeah, let's talk about your journey a little bit, and then we'll get into that. So, Yeah, just tell us about your professional journey, like getting started, college, how you even ended up doing a PhD in African Studies in South Africa. Like, yeah, what's your journey been like up to that point when you're doing your PhD?
Absolutely. So, started college in the 90s. My first degree was in accounting. In fact, my first two degrees were in business, so accounting and a master's in MBA, master's in
Mm.
business administration. Um, and then I took a break, right? And so in between the first two degrees, I opened up a restaurant in Detroit, Michigan, because I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan.
Oh.
Yes, it was a franchise. It was called Tubby's Sub Shop. So think of a Subway,
Mm.
but more gourmet, right?
Oh, so it's a fancy
Real
Subway.
subs. Yes, yes,
Ah,
yeah,
interesting.
yes, and you can get everything from ice cream to seasoned curly fries to um, different grill subs on different breads. We had our own special sauce,
That's
right?
awesome. Wait, how old
Yeah,
were
so
you when you opened this restaurant
oh
up?
wow, I was 20, 25. And in fact, I
That
was the
is
first African
crazy.
American to ever have a franchise in
Wow.
Tubby's. So that was kind of big. That was kind of big.
That is
That was kind of
huge.
big.
Like, well, how did that even happen? Like, what made you say, "I want to open up a franchise"? Like that
Yeah,
particular one. Like, yeah, tell us a little bit more about that because
absolutely.
that's fascinating. At 25, opening a franchise restaurant is actually
Yeah.
crazy.
So I think it was innate in me. One, because my grandfather was an entrepreneur.
Mm,
He was a pharmacist. He owned his own drugstore, and also he owned several blocks in Detroit, right?
mm.
And so for me, after coming back from college, I knew I didn't want to work at the big four accounting firms at that point. You know, the Deloittes, the Ernst and Youngs, the Price
Yeah.
Waterhouse Coopers. Um, and so I actually hired a consultant to see what kind of business, one, that I would be good at, and then two, that would intrigue me.
Yeah.
Um, and so we came upon this restaurant, Tubby Submarine. The restaurant business is tough.
I've
It is
heard.
tough, man. I
Yeah.
mean, I remember in that first year, I went through upwards of 20 employees in a month, hiring and firing, right? And you know, when you fire someone, the time that it takes to hire a
It's a
replacement,
lot.
it is crazy, right?
Yeah.
And at that point, because this was what 2004, 2005, it was a cash based business, right?
Mm.
Now, eventually, I got a credit card machine, but for the most part, it was a cash based business, and so. But you know what? It taught me a lot about not only myself, but it taught me a lot about um, business,
Yeah.
um, not being emotional, because I had mentors that didn't know that they were my mentors, and just seeing how they moved, right? Very
Mm.
emotionless, right? It was always about the bottom line.
Yeah.
I remember my CPA. She actually said to me, you really shouldn't be in front of the register, meaning you really shouldn't be the face of this. And I hate to say that, Corey, but with this comes a lot of jealousy and envy. She was prophetic, right? She was prophetic because the business ended because of an arson fire.
Oh, damn.
Yeah,
That's
arson fire.
I didn't expect that. Also, I mean, did you face a lot of maybe that jealousy thing? Because you're also
Oh,
young.
absolutely.
Like the fact that
Absolutely.
you're
Oh,
like a
absolutely.
young, you're
Oh,
25, own a restaurant. I'm sure people were like, what the hell does this guy think he is?
I had so many because I was in it was in the neighborhood, right? And so I thought that, I would go in, um, go give talks to the schools, give out some free food, right?
Yeah.
Never turned down a kid. If he had $2, right, that was enough for him or her to, buy a sandwich. But
Hmm.
you would have the parents come, especially when they saw my face. Oh, I need a job. I need a job. Well, ma'am or sir, right? This is a business. It's not a charity.
Yeah.
Um, and so I had a lot of the neighborhood upset with me.
Mm.
And like you said, obviously it was definitely because of my age and maybe even because of my ethnicity, dare to say.
Mm. Interesting. Yeah, because you're in Michigan, right? Oh,
Yep,
Detroit?
Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah.
And it was the same ethnicity.
That's what I was
So
gonna
let
say.
me
Detroit
point that out. Yes,
it's usually it's
absolutely.
mostly
Hey,
bad.
man, you know the crabs in the crab barrel. You've heard
Yeah, I get it. Hey, I get it. I get it. You know, a quote I always like to say is even the people in Nazareth didn't like Jesus, and Jesus was from there, right? So what's to
Absolutely.
say I am? You know, that's like one of my favorite things to say because
Absolutely.
it's the people that are actually in your neighborhood or in your community that can also be your biggest ops, essentially. You
Absolutely.
know,
Absolutely.
you'd hope that's not the case, but sometimes that it is what it is. So they burned it down.
Yeah, and obviously it was never. They never found out who did it, but it was arson.
Mm,
Yep, they provided a report,
wow,
right? And it actually burned for 6 to 8 hours.
wow,
And the fire department was down the street. So how does a building burn for 6 to 8 hours?
that's
Burned to
crazy.
the ground. It was a cement block building. You know how long a
Wow,
building has to burn to the ground? Where
yeah,
it
it
turns
takes
into
a while.
ash.
Wow.
So yeah.
So what did you do after that? Like after that whole ordeal?
Oh man. So thinking back on it, oh, it was probably a deep depression. Um,
Mm,
but in the moment, you just try to make it day by day, right? First,
yeah.
you have to take care of the business, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
one, the insurance company is going to look at you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Like, did you do
Is
it?
this
Do
some
you know?
sort of scam? Is this some
Yeah.
sort of fraud? Um, when they finally come to the realization that's not the case,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And then it takes what? Another 6 to 8 months for you to get hopefully made whole, right? And so
Mm,
I basically broke even. Insurance is number one in any business, especially if it's a brick and mortar. Please have insurance and be insured correctly.
yeah.
And so I was able to be made somewhat whole, right? You never get back your sweat equity,
Yeah.
but monetarily I was okay. And decided that, hey, I mean, some other things had happened, and I decided not to rebuild. The franchise wanted me to rebuild, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was servicing the community, but I decided not to.
Mm. So did you like just stay around like in the area or did you just like leave?
Yes. So I again that was my hometown. So I probably stayed another 4 years. I didn't move to South Africa to 2009.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, how
Yeah.
was that experience for you when you stuck around? Like, with all these people that used to give you flack, I suppose, in the community. How was
Yeah.
it like now
Yeah.
after this building is burned down? What was that like?
It was again, like I said, looking back on it, I definitely was depressed. Man, just a lot of deep thinking, like what happened? Because you have all these big dreams and big
Yeah.
goals and aspirations. Like I wanted to be the first Tubbies in an airport, right?
Mm.
Like I was thinking on that scale. I was already
Yeah.
thinking on the third store, right? And just
Yeah.
bought the first one, right? Because I'm always forward thinking. And so, like, how did this not go my way? What happened? Like, I was giving back to the community. I had Children's Day where I threw a
Mm-hmm.
barbecue in front of my store, right?
Yeah.
Kind of as a grand opening for the neighborhood. And, but again, things happen. And I would say this, if that Tubby's would have never burned down, we probably wouldn't be talking right now. I probably wouldn't have a PhD. I probably wouldn't be a global citizen because what most people don't understand, when you're an owner operator of a business, you're there
Mm-hmm.
70, 80 hours a week. It never gets turned off. I was working
Mm.
70, 80 hours a week.
Mm. Yeah, I can imagine because that's the other question I was just going to ask you before you move on to your time in South Africa. Like, out of this whole challenging time, what is the biggest lesson that you learned? Because and I'm interested in entrepreneurship myself.
Yeah.
Like, I know
Yeah.
my dad's interested in one day opening up a chain restaurant.
Yeah.
So these are things that also in my life that I'm like,
Yeah.
I've thought about this. So, out of that whole experience for you, what was like one of the biggest takeaways that you had?
Man, timing.
Mm.
And what I mean by timing is so now Detroit is revitalized, right?
Hmm.
When I had my restaurant, it was almost a ghost town. I'll be frank, right?
Mm.
Not a lot of jobs. The economy was stagnant, right? Now it's revitalized, it's vibrant, it's diverse, it's walkable. It wasn't that 20 years ago. And so
Mm.
timing, right? So do your research. Um, know that whatever you think you need as far as capital, add an extra 30 to 40%. because things will happen.
Yeah.
And understand you're going to have turnover. Nobody cares about your business more than you, right?
Hmm.
I don't care what your employees say. They can't because they're not invested like you are, right? So
Yeah.
have a firm hand, but understand that you're going to have to meet them where they are. They're not you.
That's actually a good point because I mean, if you're a people pleaser, these are the types of things where it
They'll run
becomes
over
really
you.
difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's interesting. Okay, so moving to South Africa then, and your PhD, what inspired you to even to get a PhD in African studies? Like, what was it
Man,
about that?
absolutely. So, first of all, SA is my second home.
Mm,
Uh, lived in Josie, uh, lived in the suburb called Windywood, uh, lived in Midrand, which is the middle point between Josie and Pretoria, the capital.
yeah, Midland. Yeah,
Um, lived in Durban,
I love Durban.
uh, in Pangani, right? So that's what made me obviously want to study the country. The country was the
Hmm.
culture. Um, I still have go-go's there. I still have friends there. I still have colleagues there. I still have institutions there, right? Because I studied at Wits. I studied at UP,
University of
University of
Pretoria.
Pretoria. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, and so I'm invested. I actually want to retire there, right?
really.
But not only that,
Mm,
when I first went to Howard, I was still working in government, and we were at the Meridian. This is kind of it's like it was a closed session. Ambassador to South Africa, he was basically going around town to get information and having kind of briefings about the country on both sides, right?
mhm.
And I met a guy there. His name is Dr. Bob Edgar, Robert Edgar, who was the graduate chair of Howard University. He didn't know me. I didn't know him. We were just talking about South Africa. And he said, "Huh, have you ever thought about a PhD?" I'm like,
Mm.
"No." And the money came in. I'm like, "I'm not paying for any more degrees. I just finished paying off some of these degrees. I'm done paying for degrees."
Yeah.
It was like, "Well, just come down to Howard, talk to some of the faculty and some of the students, and just see if it's a good fit." I went, and the rest is history, man. He has been such a blessing to me. He was my hardest prof. I had three.
Yeah.
My cohort, we called them Murderers Row, right? Dr. Edgar, Dr. Zogi, and Dr. Cham. But if you were stamped by them, you can go anywhere, man, especially in
Mm,
this space, right?
yeah.
Because everybody knows them. And
Mm,
so that's what I've been telling um, cohorts after me, anybody that's thinking about going into the program. Now, obviously, Dr. Eggers and Dr. Zodi are retired now, but man, it was the greatest experience of my life.
I can imagine that. Wow. That is, it's so fascinating to me how a simple conversation with somebody can completely change your life and take it in a direction that you never expected. And that's like one of my favorite things of life in life in just, and I've had guests on this podcast who've said similar things like this person, I didn't know I was going to do this thing until this person told me about, oh, why don't you have a conversation with this person? And that completely change their life. And so I guess it's what makes life so fun. The fact that I can wake up tomorrow and tomorrow I have a conversation with somebody and boom, my life has changed in an instant.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's so cool. Yeah. So kind of curious as well because I know you had the entrepreneurship spirit in you. Did you exercise that like at any point like after the whole restaurant thing, you're doing your schooling, like have you ever
A little bit. Here's the crazy part.
yeah.
So I had it. Now, this is wow, way before social media and really the internet exploded. I had a company called iStogie.com.
Mm,
So I was vacationing in Barbados.
okay.
And there was a distributor from West Germany in Barbados. So I tried her cigars. I'm like, what would you think about me being your distributor?
Hmm.
And she was like, "Where do you live?" I'm like, "Michigan." She was like, "Hmm. I mean, but where would you distribute them?" I'm like, so at this point, there really aren't cigar bars like that, right? You're going into, country clubs and golf facilities and maybe bars, right? Because you can still pretty much smoke in bars.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, also, I'll just sell them hand to hand, right? Out of my car or, by word of mouth. And so I printed up some T-shirts. I trademarked the logos, cigar at the end. It was red for the fire, and it had
Mm.
like some gray silver smoke in a circle blowing up. And it was I.stogie, stogie.com. My partner and I. And so we did that for probably maybe a year and a half, but his wife didn't see the vision. And so she was like, no, you're wasting your time with this. But bringing that full circle, I might actually bring. Now, I don't want to get into the manufacturing and distribution because
Yeah.
it's oversaturated, but I do need to find something to do with that, my logo, because it still is mine.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I,
Yeah,
I I mean, cigars, I think they're also like getting a lot more popular as well. So hey, I mean, Stogie,
absolutely.
istogie.com. I'll watch the space. I'll watch the space.
And look, I've been telling the cigar industry for years, Africa is prime. I
Mm-hmm.
learned I learned about Scotch in South Africa in Johannesburg. When I
Really?
came to Johannesburg, I was drinking vodka martinis. And I would have business meetings and they were looking like, man,
Yeah.
get this guy a proper drink. What is he drinking? Bring the card over,
Mm-hmm.
right? I was drinking, right? And so that's where I learned about, Macallans and Balvini's and Glenfiddich's and Highland Parks and LaFlorigs and Obans, right? And et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. It was with my South African comrades. So yes, and I told them about the cigars, and so now I'm so happy. There's several cigar lounges in Maputo in Mozambique, um, Johannesburg. I can go to a spot, a wine bar. Before I left in
Mm-hmm.
2019, I was going there every week to have a cigar and have a glass of wine with dinner.
Yeah.
And so we are in the space. I'm actually on a WhatsApp group with a worldwide network of cigar smokers from the continent. It's beautiful.
Hey,
And I
that
mean,
is
these
awesome.
guys are awesome.
Yeah, that's so cool. Wow. No, that's fascinating. Actually, so when you went to South Africa, was that your first time? Actually, well, maybe not, but was that like your first time in Africa, actually? Were you in South Africa?
Yes, yes. 2009, yes. That was my
So that
first
was the
time on the
first time?
continent.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm just curious, what was your experience as an African American leaving America, going to South Africa? What was
Mhm,
just from a cultural and social perspective, what was your
mhm.
experience like in when you arrived in South Africa?
Right. Um, to be honest, man, it was all love. One, because I always know my surroundings, right?
Hmm.
I'm a pretty humble dude. I mean, everybody has their tad bit of, arrogance, but I'm a
Yeah.
pretty humble dude and I recognize my surroundings. So for instance, if I'm in the CBD, the Central Business District of Johannesburg,
Yeah.
I'm not going to wear flashy watches and shoes and have my phone out, right?
Hmm.
I'm going to dress, I am going to blend in. Um, no, but I had no issues. No, the one issue I had was, so we use a curse word in the culture, and in Africa, it's taken literally. We won't speak it here, but it's taken literally.
Mm.
And I've never seen fury like that in a person's eyes. And I'm like, well, hold on, wait. Oh, you think I mean this literally? I would never talk about your mother like that, right? It's a
Mm.
phrase that we use here,
Oh yeah.
just like that, right? But
Yeah.
no, I no. And so that's the only issue I've ever had on the continent.
Mm. I was gonna say,
Yeah.
cause like in general, like when people found out that you were American and everything, like
Yeah.
how was that? How was that? Like, did people relate to you? Like, or did you feel like you could relate to the people around you and things
Absolutely,
like that?
absolutely.
Yeah.
But you got to remember too. I studied
Mm.
the culture and I studied essay, right?
Mm.
So
Mm.
yes, I'm not necessarily gonna. Well, I can't even say this because everybody talks politics in SA, right?
Yeah,
So I was well
exactly.
versed in the ANC. I was well
Yeah.
versed in the DA. Then when the
Mm.
EFF came along, I was marching, right? For fees not
That's
fees must fall, right? My
yeah.
dissertation, right, was on youth unemployment, and so
Mm.
that's the reason I wrote the dissertation because I had seen it 6, 7 years prior, right? And I knew
Mm.
that I was lucky because of where my nationality was that
Mm.
I was able to get a shot where some of my peers, friends, and colleagues weren't.
Mm.
And that's
Mm.
all it is. I'm
Yeah.
not better than anybody. I'm not smarter than anybody. I just had the opportunity that they didn't, right?
Mm.
So I recognize
The
that
reason why I'm
early.
asking is
Mhm.
that so when I left home and I went to the States, because I went to Iowa for college, right?
Okay.
And just the relationship. I didn't know that there was even like a thing, but usually the relationship between Africans and African
Yes.
Americans was always kind of like
It's
a
contentious.
little
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's
And so
contentious.
I
Mm.
never understood it. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, until I spoke to a lot more people and I got
Yeah.
to understand what is it that leads to that.
Yeah.
But you are in the good position of like you've
Yeah.
lived in both places and you
Yeah.
kind of know both cultures and people. So
And
yeah,
that's what it is. Just, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I really want
yeah,
to make this point because now I really see what you're getting at, and I'm going to hit it right here. So it's twofold.
mm,
And we both have faults, meaning
mm,
African Americans and Africans on the continent, right?
yeah,
So African Americans that go over to the continent have been stigmatized to think that it is one way and that it's monolithic, right? That it's
mm-hmm,
developing everywhere. It's not. Africans, when they come to the US, think that African Americans are lazy, right?
yeah,
Um, and just not serious. That is not correct. So we need to find a way to meet in the middle. There is so much business, so much culture that we need to nexus, man. That if we can get past, and it's all ego. It's
mm-hmm,
all ego, right?
mm-hmm,
It's because it's mostly African American men and African men, so it's
yeah,
ego clashing, right?
yeah,
And but if we really knew where each other was coming from, we would see that no, yes, there is a segment of the population on this side, and yes, there's a segment on the population on this side that is that that our claims are found to be true, but in its totality, no, no, because
yeah,
I'm living proof,
yeah,
right? So
exactly.
yeah,
I never understood why there was even a problem. I mean, and so I watched the podcast episode with Trevor Noah, and he was talking to his friend who
yeah,
is a Ghanaian American,
yeah,
and they're talking about that same thing where like, there are people who view African Americans a certain way, and then there are people, and that whole thing. But they
yeah,
were saying that,
yeah,
for Africans who actually move to America, there should actually be like a class or a course that teaches you about African American history, so you have a better understanding of the way things are and why people behave the way they do, and all
yes,
these things
yes,
that have happened, so that so you can at least dispel some of these preconceived notions or these stories that have been told that you've seen that are actually not true or they're actually like exaggerated. So I've always found it like it's one of those things that I'm like, man, I just wish people could just sit together in a space and just understand we have way more in common, because again, the more we disagree with one another, the white man wins essentially. That's the problem here. So yeah, it's
yeah,
just I thought that could be an interesting thing to talk about, because that's something that I've always wondered. But anyway, let's shift gears and talk about your book.
yes.
I really wanna get into your book. So why did you decide to call it Golf, Cigars, and Scotch?
Don't forget the balancing fatherhood,
Balancing fatherhood, friendship, and fine living. Yeah, exactly. Like
right?
I know that's the golf. That's the
Yes.
main
So
part, right? And then yeah.
absolutely. Um, to be frank, I love those three things. I
Mm,
love golf. I love cigars. I love scotch. As we
mm,
just, we preluded to,
yeah.
right, with the being in Johannesburg. Um, the book was devised because I needed self-therapy.
Mm.
I was exhausted just by the work I was doing. I was exhausted. Um,
Mm.
love foreign policy, love it, but it's exhausting. Um, and I've been on the legislative side, I've been on the executive branch side. And so I was really looking to do something new, something that would reinvigorate me, and something that would leave a legacy,
Yeah.
right? Because I do have a son, right?
Mm.
And so really the book is about, man. So I know when people hear golf, cigars, and scotch, it's a golf book or it's a book that talks about uh, cigar smoking and drinking. Those are the tools, right, that I use as parallels to balance out fatherhood, friendship, and fine living. And by the way, fine living is really up to your own interpretation, right?
Yeah.
I am I am not wealthy at all, right? But writing this book and living my truth
Mm.
and feeling free, that is fine living. I am blessed to be able to do what I want to do
Mm.
at this point, right? And that is write, share stories, tell stories, and try to make an impact, right? And so this book is for young fathers, old fathers, non fathers, men, women, younger adults, those who love golf, those who love cigars and fine spirits, because the title of Scotch is in the book, but I love South African wine. Love South African wine,
Yeah. We'll make it
right?
wine.
And so it's really your spirit of choice. You don't have to drink, right?
Uh-huh.
I love yoga. So that's your fine living. It's really finding your self being and promoting that out to the world. And
Mm.
that's what I was able to do with this book. And I'm just I'm so excited, man. I'm really excited.
I'm excited to hear more. I'm actually excited to read it too. So talking about the ideation of this book, how did that even? At what point did you decide I want to write
Yeah.
a book about this?
Right.
Like, what was the inspiration for that? Have you always been into writing like
Yes.
books and stuff? Yeah.
Yeah. So I've always I've always wrote essays.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a little bit for I started at Tennessee State University.
Okay.
I didn't end up graduating from there, but I wrote a few things for their newspaper. Like I said, written speeches for government officials. I've written articles, published articles. I've uh, copy edited academic journals and books. But this book right here was personal, right?
Mm.
Unlike my dissertation, I'm opening myself up, right? Because as a government official, you're taught to always keep yourself closed.
Yeah.
Only let folks know just enough,
Mm.
right? With this book, you're getting a lot of my life.
Mm.
And so that's been refreshing and scary at the same time. And so I've always had it kind of sketched in my mind,
Okay.
but having my son, it just made it flow, right? Because he
Mm.
gave me the stories, right? A lot of the
Mm.
stories are we're playing, and all of a sudden, Evan wants to climb up on the kitchen counter and jump off like he's Macho Man Randy Savage, or he thinks he's uh Picasso, uh crayons on the wall, right?
Mm.
Or we're playing Legos, or he knows how to shoot a basketball at one. He makes like 20 shots in a row, right? And
Yeah.
so he's allowed me to be a better version of myself.
Mm.
I'm more patient, and my wife will probably say I'm still not a patient person, but when you have kids, you they make you become more patient.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's just been a culmination of him, my life story. My friends are a big part of my life as well, and so that's where the
Mm.
friendship piece comes in. And
Cool.
so Yeah.
Yeah. So when did you actually start writing, like pen to paper?
Oh wow. This is May. Really got serious January.
Mm,
Really got serious in January. Like I said, I had some sketches, had some notes, had some thoughts.
yeah.
But January, I called myself getting into the booth like Jay-Z, right? So and I got in the booth and we got done what we needed to get done.
Hmm. I love this.
Yep.
So would you say that this book is somewhat of an autobiography of like your life and then
Uh,
maybe just other concepts? Is that something you would say, or is it a little more than that?
I guess it's a hybrid, right? You call
Mm.
it autobiography. I think I'm too young to call it a memoir.
Mm-hmm.
Self-help definitely goes in there, because it has definitely has that mentor piece. Strategic, so strategy. It's kind of like my PhD, right? It was an interdisciplinary piece of paper that I received, right? Because people think of African studies. There was an economic piece, right? There was a language piece, right? There was a research piece.
Yeah.
There was a global development piece, and so on and so forth. So I think my book is a multifaceted work of art, if you will,
Yeah.
that can engage any and everybody
Mm.
from all walks of life.
No, that's beautiful. So I do want to understand from your point of view, what does fatherhood mean to you?
Oh man, love.
Mm.
Um, I'm trying not to get emotional as you ask that. Man. I mean, look, it's the only thing I live for at this point.
Mm.
Nothing else matters. The jobs I've had, the degrees, whatever I've done, whatever. Seeing his face daily,
Mm.
taking him to school every day, us sleeping in his tent on Fridays. Right? We're gonna
Yeah.
watch the basketball game tonight, right? It's just being there,
Mm.
um, being patient, being kind, knowing that we're both gonna make mistakes, letting him be his own man, but still giving him that guiding force.
Mm.
Um, I discipline my son, man. But I probably kiss him 30 times more than his mother does, right? So I'm very affectionate and very stern in the same breath.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Why do you think it's so important to be a present father
as black men, we
and an
have the
affectionate
moniker. Yeah,
father as well?
yeah. We have this burden of we're absent, um, that we don't care, that we're really just seed donors. Um, my father he was always on time. So my mother and father weren't together in the traditional sense. Um, but whenever I stepped out of line, it was like he was there. He had a
Mm.
presence, and he saved my life. I was wild in high school, right? So I started off on the dean's list, and then the young ladies became somewhat enamored,
Mm.
and so I became full of myself,
Mm.
and it just got out of control. And he was there. He was like, "You're coming to live with me." Without that 6 months, I got back on the honor roll quickly,
Mm.
um, and went off to college and was like, "Oh, I'm never, ever, ever, ever getting back on his bad side again." I was glad before he passed that I was able to tell him, "Man, not only do I love you, but I'm gonna tell you why." And it was
Mm.
when you took me in for those 6 months, when my mother called you and said, "Hey, you need to come get him
Mm.
because there's nothing I can do with him anymore." And so that's being there. as a grown up now, I know my father had his own life. I probably wasn't, you know, infringing upon his bachelor space, right?
Yeah.
I know I was. Um, but hey, man, that's what fathers have to do. We have to
Mm.
sacrifice. It is our duty. Once you
Yeah.
become one, it is your duty, in my opinion. There is
Mm.
nothing else that is important besides your child.
Yeah.
That's it. And providing for that said child or children, right? That's it.
Mm.
Everything else is secondary.
Yeah. No, that is true. And I know you just briefly mentioned how you said you kiss your son way probably more than your wife
Oh,
does.
absolutely.
Why is it so important to be an affectionate father with the children?
My father wasn't. Um, until he got older, until we became grown men. I was like, because I thought he was the hardest man on the planet.
Mm.
I only saw him cry once. That was when my nana died, his mother. Um, but it was a firm handshake. So we hugged up until I was 8 or 9, and then
Uh-huh.
after that, it was always a firm handshake. And I remember the
Mm.
first time, he stuck his head. I was like, "What's up to the
Ah.
hug?" And then when I got in high school, we did the bro hugs.
Yeah.
And then in my 30s, he starts kissing me on my cheek. I'm like, and at this point, I'm like, who are you? So you were always this affectionate. But men that grew up in the 40s, man,
Yeah.
they had this rough exterior. I decided I wasn't going to be that.
Mm.
Now, I'm sure as my son gets older, hey, man, yeah, relax. But hey, he has to know every day that I love him dearly.
Mm. Mm. No, that's beautiful. Yeah, because even for me growing up, my father's a very affectionate father too. Like
Mm,
going to bed, even as I was a teenager, it's always gonna
yeah,
be a hug, kiss on the
yeah,
cheek, good
yeah,
night,
yeah,
goodbye. And I know it's manifested in me as well, being an affectionate man. Like I
yeah,
show my affection without, to me, it's normal.
yeah,
But
yeah,
people will be like, no, that's not. For some people, that's not a normal thing for them. But for me, I'm very like affectionate.
yeah.
I love to show people that I care about them. So I can definitely say that's because I saw my father do it and I grew up feeling it. And
Mm,
so to me, it's a normal part of life. So I definitely, yeah, I see the value of being that. And I think it's an important message to send out because there's a lot of stuff on the internet and there's a lot of back and forth
man,
conversations
right.
that you get, especially with the lack of fatherhood there is out there these days. So hearing stories from actual men are like, hey, it's good to be present and it's good to be affectionate
Absolutely.
because especially to your sons, not just to your baby girls, but
Right.
to your sons
No, no,
specifically.
no.
Yeah.
One thing, one thing's for sure, two things for certain. My pops loves me. That's what my pops loves me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Wait, how old is your son?
4.
Ah, nice, nice. Okay. Yeah. No, that's a that's a great age. A bundle,
Man.
yeah, bundle
Yeah.
of energy.
He talks a mile a minute and he won't sit still.
Mm,
Every day he has how did you get this scratch? He's a boy's boy. How did you get this
yeah.
scratch? How did you scratch your face? How's your knee? What man? Do I need to put you in some cellophane? Nah, just okay. As you were. As you were.
Yeah. And I know you talk about friendship in this book
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
What is it about friendship that is so important to you? And what do you mean by like friendship, especially throughout the book? Like what's the theme of friendship?
Yes. Well, one is essential to the soul, man. I mean, without my friends, again, I've had so many ebbs and flows in my life, right?
Yeah.
Parents dying. My mother died when I was 24. So my mother
Mm.
never saw me pass getting a high school diploma. I have three,
Oh.
said college degrees. She's never seen it. Um, my friends were there to hold me up.
Mm.
When the business burned, my friends were there every day. I didn't want to talk to anybody about anything. They just sat there, right?
Mm.
Um, just various things. When I'm out the country and still needed some stuff done, in the States, I have friends that I can count on. When I was teaching at NYU and Howard, and I couldn't pick up Evan, one of my best friends, his godfather, right? So friends, you have to have a community
Mm.
to be successful, in my opinion. You have to have a strong community, one that values you, one that wants to see you grow, um, and one that truly cares, man. And so, but you also have to, I believe you only get out what you put in, right?
Yes.
And so my friends know that they can come to me for anything, right?
Mm.
Um, if I have it, you have it, right? When I'm having a good time, I have the best times when I can see my friends have great times, right? And I'll
Yeah.
just sit back and say, yeah. So,
No, that's beautiful. Yeah, no, friendships, especially as we grow older, I think there's nothing more important than friendships. As you said, like they can be the cornerstone of your life in the sense of just everything happening. But okay, so as we're closing out, so what is like the one, if someone's like, okay, why should I really read this book, Corey? Like why should I even purchase this book? What am I gonna get out of it? I know we've kind of like talked about it a little bit
yeah,
throughout our
yeah,
conversation,
yeah, yeah.
but in a one clean way, why should somebody say, okay, I'm gonna go on Amazon and I'm gonna purchase this book and I'm gonna read it? What do you hope that they get out of it?
I want you to see that they're a community of fathers, right? Who support each other's growth.
Hmm.
I'm in so many group chats with just fathers sharing stories. There are fathers who want to build community,
Hmm.
right, around each other and with their children. So that's one. You do have a place to go. You are not alone, right?
Yeah.
And two, you still can be you, whatever that means. You still, because you aren't your best self if you can't enjoy you and if you're not happy with you. So if you're not happy, it won't manifest into your children, right? And so that's where the golf and and the cigars and the scotch, and really the scotch and the cigars and the golf is really just fellowship, right? With
Yeah.
friends. See the
Hmm.
correlation, see the tie-in, right? Right? It's a reprieve, and we're still talking about our children anyway, but it's a way for us to woo-saw and say, hey man, I'm going through it, or I have been through it too. Here's what I did. Here's what worked. Here's what didn't work. Or, hey, man, I'm going through this. Let me just throw this by you
Hmm.
and get your feedback.
Hmm.
It's just community,
Hmm.
simply and plainly.
I love that. And it's so important. Where can people, we've kind of said Amazon, but where else can people get your book or
Yeah,
yeah.
Amazon, Barnes and Noble. At this point, the audio version will be out soon.
Nice.
And then you'll be able to get that on Spotify and Apple and audiobooks and all the other places that you can get it. But
Yeah, you
right
know
now,
what?
yes.
When I
But
release this episode, I'm also gonna link the book on
yes,
Amazon so
please.
that
Absolutely.
people get to, if you're interested and curious to see where you can see more about this book and stuff. Again, it's called Golf, Cigars, and Scotch: Balancing Fatherhood, Friendship, and Fine Living. So I will have it up there, but it definitely looks like an amazing book. I know I'm gonna get it. So just to read it, it's someone who wants to be a father one day, and I
Oh
definitely
man. Oh,
know
you're gonna
that.
love it. Oh, so you're not a father yet. Oh, you're going
No,
to
no, no, no.
love
I'm
it.
I'm recently
Okay.
married, and like
Okay.
fatherhood is
Okay.
the next step.
Okay. Okay. Oh, you're
So
gonna love it, Mutsa.
yeah, yeah, right.
Because you have
I
to have your you have to have,
yeah.
but you have to have your vice, right? You
Hmm.
have to have your sanctuary where you can go. Like, look, again, as you can see, love my family, love my baby boy, but you have to get away to find your
Mm,
peace, to kind of recalibrate and come back better and stronger. So,
mm.
and it's okay,
Yeah.
right? It's okay.
No, that's true. Yeah, exactly, exactly. No, and that's again, that's a good message to send out there, that it's good to have your thing, so you can go recharge and come back,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
show your best self. So yeah, again, people, you should definitely go find the book by Dr. Corey Holmes. It's out there. So I'm definitely encouraging everybody to go
Absolutely.
and
It's
check it
on,
out.
yes, ebook, paperback, and hardcover, and audio coming soon.
Audio coming. I love it. I love it. Any parting words as we close out here?
Musa, I just want to thank you again for sharing your platform with me, uh, for listening to my story. I hope your audience finds some nuggets, some jewels in some of the words that I've uttered today. Um, and to all the men, but especially fathers out there, you have a community, you have a tribe, you have a cohort,
Mm,
you have people, right?
yeah,
Ubuntu, I am because we are.
exactly.
I am because we are. So don't ever feel that you're alone. And golf is a great way to find you, right? And then you bring your friends along, man. And then
Yeah.
ultimately you bring your offspring along. Because that's what
Mm,
I'm doing for Father's Day. My son is going on the golf course with me for the first time.
that's lovely.
Can't
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. I also have to take time to appreciate you coming on this platform and again telling your story, telling us about your journey, opening up the world to us, especially through the book. I'm sure as we read this, we're gonna learn more about you, learn more about your experiences and your journey as a father and friendships, what they've meant, fine living, as you said, and I liked what you said about how fine living is subjective to you. It's
It's
personal to you.
subjective to
Whatever
you.
you decide is fine living for you,
Absolutely.
I like that because people have an
Absolutely.
idea sometimes about, oh,
Right.
fine living has to mean this, but no, it doesn't.
It's not
You know,
monetary at all. There
yeah, it
is
doesn't
not
have to be
a
monetary.
it's not a monetary aspect. I mean, besides some of the scotches, but
Yeah. Exactly, exactly. Well, I've really enjoyed our conversation today, and listener, I do hope as well that you've enjoyed the conversation. And again, if you're interested in hearing more and learning more, go check out the book. Go check out his book, Golf, Cigars, Scotch, Balancing Fatherhood, Friendship, and Fine Living. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, comment, like. We'll have to hear your thoughts on just all the wide range of topics that we've discussed today. But with that, listener, we appreciate your time and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.